Good evening. Welcome to this Audit and Governance Committee meeting. Could I ask everyone to note the fire safety instruction that upon hearing the alarm, you should leave the chamber via the double doors at the back, exit the building through the main entrance and congregate in the car park. Also, please switch off your mobile phones and turn any other electronic devices being used to silent. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting is subject to an internet webcast recording, where the proceedings are capable of repeated viewing. If you are seated in the public area of the council chamber, it is likely that your image will be captured by the recording cameras and result in your image becoming part of the broadcast. This may infringe your human rights, and if you wish to avoid this, you should leave the public seating area of the council chamber and move to the upper public gallery. If members are, for any reason, not present for the whole debate on an item, you should consider and seek advice, as necessary, on whether it would be appropriate for you to vote on that item. May I remind members to declare any interest when this item is raised on the agenda. Item 1. Apologies for absence. Mrs. Borman, do we have any apologies?
Thank you, Chair. No apologies have been received.
Thank you. Item 2. Declarations of interest. Are there any interests to be considered? Thank you. Item 3. Minutes of the previous meeting of the Audit and Governance Committee. Is it your wish? Councillor Chinnery.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick one on the members' training in the minutes. We requested a recorded vote solely for the purpose that we had an issue with the carbon literacy training. When the members' training was circulated to all members on the 29th of October, that was missing from the document, and as members we were not informed of it being dropped. So could I ask why carbon literacy training has been dropped, and if members of this committee could be informed as to why if it were to change again? Thank you.
Thank you. It's my understanding that the item will come back at the February meeting, and it will be discussed then, at which point I hope that any remaining queries can be answered then.
Thank you.
Councillor Sankey.
Just a point on page 9. That actually has been answered, the carbon literacy we were talking about. I have another one on page 7, risk management update. Members welcomed this report and asked for follow-up at the December meeting to ensure recommendations were progressing. Obviously, we don't have an agenda item for risk management in this particular meeting.
Thank you, Chair. So some training has occurred, training and a review of risk has happened with CLT on the 24th of November, and there was CMT on the 25th. It was hosted or managed by or presented by Zurich, and out of that there was quite a lot of there's a program around reviewing the risks, reprioritising them, reviewing, and having more discussions with CMT to strengthen the Council's risk framework, and then that will be presented. The outcome from that and the revised risk register will come at the next committee. We'll come to next.
Any other comments on the minutes? If not, subject to those amendments, is it your wish that I sign as a correct record the minutes of the Audit and Governance Committee held on the 22nd of October 2025, which begin on page 5 of the agenda.
Agreed.
Thank you. Councillors, I would like to propose to vary the order of the agenda to discuss the cybersecurity update at the end of the agenda in order that it can be discussed as a confidential item. Do I have a seconder?
Happy to second.
Is that agreed? Thank you. We will now go to item 5. Item 5, internal audit update. The appendices are update reports from the Council's internal auditors, BDO. Appendix A sets out the progress towards delivering the plan for 2025-26, and Appendix B sets out the progress by the organisation in delivering, or not, agreed actions arising from previous audits. Mr Winter and Mr Billingham, do you have anything to add to this report?
Thank you, Chair. I'll take the progress report, and my colleague, Mr Winter, will take the follow-up report. So our progress report is on page 23, which shows the completion of the internal audit plan. Since the last committee, we've completed audits on the Revs and Bends partnership and sickness absence management, and a summary of the reports is included as part of the pack. Fieldwork is ongoing for the out-of-hours service. We had hoped to have completed that audit by now, but there have been some delays in obtaining some evidence. This has been escalated, and we've been promised that information this week, so we should hopefully be able to complete that in the next couple of weeks. And the rest of the audits have been planned and scoped, and they're scheduled for later in the year. I'll pause there quickly and just see if anyone's got any questions on that segment of the report before I kind of move on to the Revs and Bends partnership report. If we've got no question,
Mr McLaughlin.
Has the GDPR replacement audit been identified yet?
I discussed this with officers at the Well-Led Authority Board the other week, and I think they are considering what audit is going to come up with some suggestions, and then we'll examine those suggestions and decide what audit is going to replace it.
Councillor Fulcher.
Thank you. I wanted to see if you think it's appropriate that the work or a report that's been conducted with staff sickness and absence could also perhaps go forward to like a health and wellbeing board, just in terms of the sort of empathetic approach and what we're dealing with here and what those figures actually mean.
We're going to come on. I think we're going to come on to that report in a little bit. So if I could take your question later on, when I come on to that report, I'll answer that one then, if that's okay.
Oh, I hadn't realised you weren't at that. No, certainly. Thank you.
Councillor Sankey.
Thank you, Chair. Just flipping back to page 20, actually, on the background supporting information, the very top paragraph, I think that the Revenue and Benefits Partnership and Sickness Absence Management says it's complete and also in progress. So I think the second part of that is incorrect. And also section 106 agreements, it says March 2023. It's obviously that's March 2026. One question I have on the Revenue and Benefits Partnership, page 28. The Council currently pays Basildon circa 1.45 per annum for the agreement. Is this subject to review, and how often is it reviewed? Thank you.
I don't know the answer to that question, but I was going to go through the report separately, and I'll take questions on them as we go.
That's fine. If you can go through that now, that would be brilliant. Thank you.
Okay, I'll take you through the kind of Revs and Bends report next. Okay, so that's on page 28, which shows a summary of the audit. So the purpose of the audit was to provide assurance around the adequacy and effectiveness of the contract management arrangements. It's received a moderate assurance rating for the design and the effectiveness of the control framework. So we've raised 3 medium priority rated recommendations and 1 low priority rated recommendation. So the recommendations are around ensuring contract management meetings occur as stipulated in the Memorandum of Understanding and in making sure that they are minuted and actions are documented. The second recommendation is around reviewing the Memorandum of Understanding annually to ensure all responsibilities are being fulfilled by the contractor. The third recommendation is about developing procedures for handling any contract changes. And the fourth recommendation is ensuring the payment terms listed in the memorandum align with the Council's financial procedures. Excuse me. Happy to take any questions on that report, specifically the Revs and Bends report.
Councillor Poppy.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the report. My biggest problem is the areas of concern that you've marked on page 30, where you were informed that formal contract monitoring meetings used to occur quarterly, but obviously that's all gone out of the window. The second paragraph now says we were unable to confirm contract obligations completed by the supplier. So we're actually saying there, we're actually auditing something that we actually don't know whether the supplier's actually giving us the stuff we actually want that we're actually paying for. I just find that, it's a great report and it's 3 pages, 4 pages or whatever, but the actual areas of concern are telling me that nothing's actually happening.
From our perspective, the auditors, I think there was a lack of evidence to confirm the monitoring meetings were happening. So there were verbal kind of confirmations to say there were contract management meetings, but there were no documented minutes or action plans in place so we could confirm that actually occurred. I think when we spoke to officers, they said there'd been a bit of transition in the contract lead, so that perhaps has led to some of these kind of inconsistencies in what's happening. But probably management are probably best placed to kind of answer the question.
It's not as if it's running for 6 months or whatever. This contract's been running for quite some time, and I'm being told by officers that they actually don't know what's happening.
Mr. Dickinson.
Yeah, so the contract has been going for a while, and there has been a lapse in the monitoring of the contract, mainly because it's generally a contract that's worked well. There haven't been too many issues. There haven't been that many issues at all. But what's happened is it's moved over to a new director, and the new director, from about July, has introduced all the controls and all the regular meetings, minuting the meetings, and as far as the budget goes and the regular reviews, the budget's reviewed each year. It's a part of the budget setting process, and currently there are savings proposals within the contract with Basildon. So overall, the contract's working well. It's just not been monitored.
We actually don't know whether the contract's working. We were unable to confirm.
Councillor Poppy.
Sorry.
So there are lots of interactions with Basildon as far as the benefit side goes. So there's regular reporting, we get lots of yeah.
Councillor Poppy, you could just use your microphone.
We were unable to confirm that the contract obligations are being completed by the supplier, which is Basildon. But you're telling me that the contract's working well and that there's regular conversations and all the rest of it. That doesn't make sense, does it?
Yeah, I think as far as actually sort of reporting and be able to have outcomes from the quarterly meetings, that wasn't there. But outside of that, there's a regular monitoring and regular reporting and getting information and reporting through the budget, through the income collection, through the various other areas, but specifically on that contract management side, that's where it's been. There hasn't been that sort of writing down of the outcomes from the meetings, but there are definitely no issues with the contract currently, apart from the parts that have been mentioned in the report, which we'll be improving on.
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Chair. To follow up on Councillor Poppy's point, which I think is very important, my understanding of this, and it's what we've seen in other issues, where the job of an auditor is to prove something's happened. And actually, where's the evidence that something did? So your audit's telling us there's no documentary evidence that this actually happened. But what we're hearing from the officers is it did happen, we just never documented it. Do we have any, through your audit, was there any indication that, how should I put this, that while there's no documentary evidence of the actual meetings, the minutes, etc., was there any evidence that processes were being mismanaged as such, or evidence of like fraud or poor practices, or the contract not being delivered, or was it the audit focus on poor processes to confirm things, or was there evidence of poor contract delivery? Where did that balance lie?
So there was no evidence of any kind of fraud or mismanagement of the contract per se. So we were just looking at whether the processes were well designed and effective. And because they couldn't be evidence, or certain processes couldn't be evidence, then we had to draw our conclusion based on that.
And just Andrew's response as well, in terms of this is a summary of our report, and the full report does delve into that we sampled 22 contract obligations. So those 3 that we're flagging out of those 22, those are the 3 where we didn't have the minutes, etc. But we did see meeting invites, regular liaison, etc. And there was other KPI reporting that we saw on some of the more fundamental elements of collection of the actual funds, etc., that you would expect of the partnership. So there was that balance there.
Thank you.
Mr McLaughlin.
Yeah, the KPIs would give us assurance. Do the KPIs separately identify Brentwood?
Sorry, could you ask that question again, please?
Sorry, KPIs would give us assurance. Just asking, do the KPIs, are they specific to Brentwood, or are they generic ones covering all their revenue connection activities?
So they are specific to Brentwood.
Thank you. I mean, I think one thing that is clear from the management action plan is that these meetings should and will now be minuted. And I note that on page 31 and page 32 that there are actions in place in relation to ensuring that this median finding is addressed in the future. I would be happy to see, perhaps at the next committee meeting, an update in relation to these procedures so that we can reassure members of the things that are raised. I do take it as important that if you're going to have meetings and processes, that you have to document them so that they can be audited. I recognise that we tend to take goodwill on the part of officers as granted, but if you don't document it, then that's less easy to evidence. So perhaps a little bit more institutional rigour and have hopefully a confirmation at the next meeting and beyond in relation to this. Anything further on this? Councillor Sankey?
I go back to my misplaced question earlier. Page 28, the council currently pays Basel 1.45 million per annum, the agreement. How often is that reviewed, please?
Mr Dickinson.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so it's reviewed annually as part of the budget setting process, and currently Basildon have a savings target that they are achieving for this year. So it is regularly reviewed, and it's increased by the uplift within the contract. But yeah.
Mr McLaughlin.
Yeah, on page 30 there's a reference to the business continuity plan and it being available on the intranet. Possibly thinking ahead to the cybersecurity type thing, is the intranet a risk, or is it elsewhere?
we didn't examine the security controls around the intranet, but I assume it's just for internal staff only and it cannot be accessed externally, but perhaps Officer could answer that question.
Thank you. Councillor McLaughlin.
Councillor Poppy.
Yes, I was just about to answer the question. Is that okay? Thank you. Yeah, the intranet is controlled by only officer access.
Going back to the Councillor Sankey's point about it being reviewed, how do we review it every year? From our discussions with officers, we were informed that the council does not currently have a process in place to handle changes to the contract. So how do we review it? Do we just look at it and go, oh, okay, fine, and then carry on? Or do we actually go through it properly?
So the contract's got a few parts to it. So specifically on the budget, there's an annual increase which is agreed. But then outside of that, there's discussions around savings, trying to find efficiencies, reviewing there's joint reviews of the contracts, the various contracts that Basildon has around systems, and so that does happen as part of the budget setting process. So we normally look at it between November and December, and then that will be part of the budget report. Yeah.
Any further questions on this particular segment of the agenda item? In that case, we'll move on.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So page 33 provides a summary of the sickness absence management audit. So this audit looked at the council's sickness absence management processes. It's received a substantial opinion for the design of controls and a moderate opinion for their effectiveness. So we've raised one medium and one low priority recommendation. So the medium recommendation is around introducing compliance checks to ensure council processes are adhered to, as our sample testings identified some exceptions. And the low recommendation is around introducing reporting on non-compliance with policies to kind of enhance the oversight of that. I'm happy to take any questions.
Councillor Chinnery.
Thank you, Chair. I see we have 1,348 working days lost to sick leave. Is that kind of a typical number for an organisation of this size? And I also have a question about the sample of 15 cases. Is that an adequate sample for an audit with 1,300 odd days working days lost? Thank you.
I can't give any kind of comparative information on the number of sick days, but perhaps I could take that away and come back to you outside this committee. With regards to the sample size, that would have been selected in line with our kind of sampling methodology. So that looks at the overall population and level of risk. And I think 15 would have been within that kind of sampling methodology risk rating. So I think it provides us with adequate assurance over that control.
And our sampling would have taken into account instances of sickness as well. So obviously some people would have been off for a period of time that maybe elongated multiple weeks. So therefore we look at that as our population.
Thank you. And in terms of kind of manager compliance with the policies, that's been highlighted as a medium concern. That seems quite alarming, because I think if I were to go off sick, managers would really be on to me to kind of get back to work. They want to know where I am. Is this a rare occurrence in a public sector audit? Or is it something that kind of, when you look at it, is actually more common than appears on the page? Thank you.
I think there is probably a common theme, and that common theme is the retention of evidence and evidencing things that happen. So it's not perhaps that these return to work interviews didn't occur. It's just the fact they can't be evidenced as actually occurring, and that evidence has not been saved. I have seen that elsewhere. It is quite a common problem. So, but without the evidence, we can't confirm these things have happened.
Thank you.
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of moments to it. So, given the rather quick deadline to implement these things, although one's a medium priority, one's a low priority. January 26th, when you completed your audit, effectively at the start of this month, unless I'm wrong, indicates that these are things that, in theory, fundamentally can be solved at pace, but should have been right beforehand, frankly. So that's in some ways a positive, and actually the substantial assurance and actual design of the system is a positive thing to see. The system, as designed, works well, and it works pretty well, but the flaws in it seem to me as being annoying rather than fundamental, which is not great in terms of, back to the earlier point, no evidence necessarily that the interviews didn't happen, but they just aren't keeping the form, or logging the form is pretty frustrating from my perspective in terms of it's something that's simple that could be solved rather than something fundamental. But annoying isn't acceptable when it comes to employment matters and other challenges we've got there. And my other question is, it says in the report that you did this against Brentwood and Rochford. Is the sickness days just Brentwood side, or was Rochford similar in terms of number? Or was Brentwood, it'd be interesting to see if Brentwood numbers are higher or lower or about the same as Rochford.
Sorry, we'll see if we've got that data to hand and perhaps get back to you on that particular question. If not, we can come back to you after the committee. But
Mr McLaughlin and then Councillor Fulcher.
Yeah, there's a number of non-compliances identified. Are there fixes that can be put into the system that remind people if things are missing, or are people just ignoring sort of like systems? Is it being flagged that they're missing things or not?
I don't know if the system actually flags that automatically or whether it is more of a manual process. So I'll take that question away and come back to you as well, Councillor.
Councillor Fulcher and then Councillor Poppy.
Thank you very much. Appreciating the work that's being done with absences. If I could repeat my earlier question, sorry, poorly timed, because of the sensitive nature of these figures and the reasons for, the reasons behind them, can a report not go to Health and Wellbeing Board I think it's a piece of work that has to be supported in some way.
Yeah, I think it's a decision for officers, but yeah, I think it's a good idea to take it to the Health and Wellbeing Board, but it's a decision that officers would have to make.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Councillor Poppy.
It was only really to Councillor Barrett's point about comparing Rochford to Brentwood, which I agree with, except for the fact that Rochford doesn't have a depot, so it's going to take out a whole slew of people.
Thank you.
I've got the data for Rochford for the similar period, so from April to September 25, they lost 308 days to sickness in comparison to Brentwood.
Both these items have something in common, which is a lack of documentary rigour. But both of them also propose solutions, namely that managers manage and make sure that they record. I note that Zoe Sarwood, who's not here today, has said that there will be compliance checks carried out and that obviously managers will be made accountable. Now, it's important that managers are accountable because as somebody who's dealt with the occasional employment law dispute in my time, if things are not properly documented, then that is gold dust to an employment tribunal in certain circumstances, and it can be expensive for the public authority concerned. Now, I'm not saying that this would happen in any of these cases, but it's important that managers not just do what they say, but document what they say and what happens, particularly in cases involving long-term sickness. One point that I would welcome a little bit of clarity on is there is a figure in the thing about how many hours have been spent in long-term sickness, but it doesn't say how many employees it relates to. Now, I don't want to identify anybody who ought not to be identified, but it would be just useful to know how many individuals it applied to, just so that we could get a scale of it. And I think that would be useful for future reports. Any more questions from anyone on this item? Councillor Sankey.
Yeah, just before we leave internal audit, just page 27, out of hours service. The original date, audit committee date was December the 25th, or December this month. That's been pushed back to March 26th. So is there a particular reason for that, please?
So we have had some delays in getting the evidence from officers. We have escalated that, and we have been promised the evidence this week. So hopefully we can conclude that audit. Unfortunately, if we don't get the evidence, then we won't be able to provide assurance around certain risks that we're examining. So that would then obviously be reported back to the Audit and Governance Committee.
Thank you. I'm keen to see that particular item addressed. Any more on this particular segment of the agenda? Thank you. There is a recommendation, and I will require a seconder. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that, Chair.
The recommendation is that the reports from BDO be noted. All those in favour? Against? Thank you. Item 6, 2025-26 scale of audit fees on page 61. This report updates members on the public sector audit appointments published fee scale for 2025-26 audits, the outcome of the statutory consultation, and implications for the Council, including issues about fees and timescales. Mr. Dickinson, do you have anything to add to this report?
Thank you, Chair. The audit for 24-25 has started, so I was hoping just to give an update. I've got a statement from the external auditor, if it would be okay to provide that. She just asked, because the audit has only just started, it's quite early to give a complete update, but she's asked me just to read this out. So the external audit for 24-25 financial statements started in early November. During the audit work carried out to date, the finance team have been responsive to requests for sample evidence, and further queries and sample testing has progressed as planned. There are some brought forward balances in the debtors and creditors that are currently being reviewed by finance, but other areas of testing are progressing. At this stage of the audit, the value for money risk of significant weaknesses in relation to the production of the accounts and servicing of the audit is mitigated in 24-25 by the positive engagement received from finance to audit requests. We will continue to assess this as the audit progresses. The risk area of property, plant and equipment valuation is in the early stages and will require more detailed explanations from the valuer on some of the assumptions used in the valuation of the assets. We are reviewing a large sample of assets owned by the Council and by sale. We have not identified any misstatements in the work completed to date. We will provide the findings from the audit at the 3rd of February 2026 committee for signing the audit before the backstop. As explained in previous committees, this will be a disclaimer opinion in line with the guidance. So even if the audit is completed, there will still be disclaimed based on opening balances. And then just on agenda item 6, so there was a consultation and the Council provided a response opposing the increase in fees. I think it was around about 4%. They've come back and the final increase is 308%. And the extended audit timetable for completion will be the 31st of January 2027. Overall, the response we gave in the consultation was not overly positive, just because we don't feel that even though we're having an audit now and it's progressing well, it still doesn't feel like it did a few years ago, where we had there was this sort of better engagement and earlier audit, and the audit happened just after the accounts closed rather than around Christmas time. And can't quite work out why we can't go back to that. It seems a bit strange that things were easier 6 or 7 years ago than they are now. It should be a lot more. Should be easier to do that, and the officers within the council are ready to provide. We've produced the accounts, and we would hope to have the audit on time, but that hasn't been the case. But this isn't just something for Brentwood. This is across the country, and it's just we highlighted that as part of the consultation response. Thank you.
Questions from the committee? Councillor Sankey.
Thank you, Chair. As I understand it, whether the audit is completed or not, you still have to pay the same audit fee. Is that correct?
So if no audit happened, so this is looking back to previous years, then a very much reduced audit fee was paid, a small audit fee. Whereas in a lot of the cases where a full audit did happen, often the fees were quite a bit higher because there's extra work and other costs that were incurred. So yes, there is a small charge, but you don't get charged to not have an audit, which is completely the wrong way around. It would be better to have the audit and have the correct fees.
Any further questions from members? If not, then I will move the motion. I do require a seconder.
Happy to second, Chair.
The recommendation is as follows. R1, note the PSAA 2025-26 audit fee scale and consultation outcome. R2, recognise the financial and operational implications of the revised fee scale and audit timetable. I'll call a vote to be taken by a show of hands. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Motion is carried. Item 7, Committee Work Programme, page 65. The report sets out the work programme for the committee for the municipal year 2025 to 2026. Mr Dickinson, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Chair. No question. No, nothing to add.
Questions from the committee? Councillor Sankey.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, let me just get this. Yes, right. I'll get my pages mixed up. Right, so for February 26, on the schedule we have whistleblowing policy twice. It's just a point of principle.
Thank you. Not on this, but should be, is the thing that training is meant to be coming back in February. In the main, the committee were happy with the training programme as discussed, but there were a few differences of opinion, which I understand. But it would be important that the work programme reflects that it is coming back in February, when obviously we will have more items to discuss. But I think that would be an important reassurance, because I know that members want to put the training programme to bed one way or the other. And so if that could be noted, that would be good. Obviously, in relation to the budget item, as I know there was some confusion last year over which committee was doing what and where, this is strictly limited to the budget process. Is that not right, Mr Dickinson?
Thank you, Chair. That's correct.
If there are no further questions on this item, then I will move the recommendation. Do I have a seconder?
Happy to have second, Chair.
Thank you. Recommendation that the committee notes its current work programme as set out in Appendix A as amended. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Motion is carried. I'm now going to move to